Meanwhile, the punishment phase is underway once again in the trial of Gregory Newsom, the man convicted of the 2019 murder of Panola County Sheriff Deputy Chris Dickerson. This follows a weeks-long pause due to scheduling conflicts. The state psychologist was back on the witness stand for most of the day. The judge issued a warning to lawyers on both sides on making misleading statements throughout the trial. The case could go to the jury as soon as tomorrow. They will decide between the death penalty and serving life in prison. Bond reduction denied. That was a Smith County judge's ruling for accused dogfighting ringleader Michael Jones.
60 dogs were seized from Michael Jones and his brother Kerry Jones' property back in September. Some of the dogs were badly injured. KLTV's Michael Richardson reports on what led to the judge's decision to not lower the bond.
It stays at roughly $700,000. That's the bond that has now been set for Michael Jones, which consists of 13 felony offenses as well as a charge relating to possession of marijuana. Over the course of 3 hours today, the state and defense argued their case. The defense calling Michael Jones's mother, Brenda Dearman, to the stand, who says the criminal case surrounding her son has harmed their barbecue restaurant business. She adds that her son did not have a dogfighting arena and testified to his character.
Michael would not fight a human being, let alone a dog.
He just allowed his brother to do it.
Michael is a nurturer. Michael loves his puppies. You don't know what this has done to him.
At one point, Dearman tried to not answer questions regarding the alleged dogfighting arena, attempting to plead the fifth. Judge Gunther informing court witnesses cannot do that.
Now that we're to the state and the prosecutor, they're giving him a hard time. And you're sticking up for him, and now you're sticking up for me.
Defendant Michael Jones also took the stand. He says he could not afford to pay the bond, offering detail about his finances.
What do you pay yourself on average weekly?
If I can make the payment, I'll pay myself $500.
The state alleges that Jones sold marijuana, which was part of that bail. Testimony revealed Jones used it to treat ADHD. Michael Richardson, KLTV 7 News.
The next step of the case is Michael Jones' arraignment. Kerry Jones, his brother, will be in court on Friday.